Before the Fellowship was the greatest story you've never heard. I'm Cameron.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Greg.
Join us as we read and react to the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Last time we read about the kinslaying. Olwe of the Teleri refused to assist Fëanor. Violence broke out and the Noldor overcame the Teleri and stole their ships. Mondos declared that because of the blood they shed, the Noldor would be afflicted with violence. Today we continue Chapter 9 of Quenta Silmarillion, beginning on page 89 of the second edition.
Can you read that again, but try and do it in a more boring way?
Was it boring?
It was kind of boring. It didn't inspire me. Like, I don't even want to do this episode. I'm out. You guys can read it.
Well, the thing about... So, because I'm stoic, when I think I'm reading at like a level 8 excitement, it's actually more like a 4.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what you said. Like, it was just
by
like,
the way, Greg,
drab.
can you turn up your mic? And Dan, can you comb your hair?
I can't comb my hair. It's too frizzy. It's too dry here. Also haven't showered in days. A day. A singular day, people. Less than 24 hours.
This is not making the cut. I'm sorry.
The Noldor came at last far into the north of Arda, and they saw the first teeth of the ice that floated in the sea, and knew that they were drawing nigh to the Helcaraxë. For between the land of Araman, that in the north curved eastward, and the east shores of Endor, which is Middle Earth, that bore westward, there was a narrow strait, through which the chill waters of the encircling sea and the waves of Belager flowed together. And there were vast fogs and mists of deadly cold. And the sea streams were filled with clashing hills of ice, and the grinding of ice deep sunken. Such was the Helcaraxë. And there none yet had dared to tread, save the Valar only, and Ungoliant. Therefore Fëanor halted, and the Noldor debated what course they should now take. But they began to suffer anguish from the cold, and the clinging mists through which no gleam of star could pierce. And many repented of the road and began to murmur, especially those that followed Fingolfin, cursing Fëanor, and naming him as the cause of all the woes of the Eldar. But Fëanor, knowing all that was said, took counsel with his sons, and 2 courses only they saw to escape from Araman and come into Endor, by the straits or by ship. But the Helcaraxë they deemed impassable, whereas the ships were too few. Many had been lost upon their long journey, and there remained now not enough to bear across all the great host together. Yet none were willing to abide upon the western coast, while others were ferried first. Already the fear of treachery was awake among the Noldor. Therefore it came into the hearts of Fëanor and his sons to seize all the ships and depart suddenly. For they had retained the mastery of the fleet since the Battle of the Haven, and it was manned only by those who had fought there and were bound to Fëanor. And as though it came at his call, there sprang up a wind from the northwest, and Fëanor slipped away secretly with all whom he deemed true to him, and went aboard and put out into the sea, and left Fingolfin in Araman. And since the sea was there narrow, steering east and somewhat south, he passed over without loss, and first of all the Noldor set foot once more upon the shores of Middle-earth. And the landing of Fëanor was at the mouth of the firth, which was called Drengist, and ran into Dolormen. But when they were landed, Maedhros, the eldest of his sons, and on a time the friend of Fingon, ere Morgoth's lies came between, spoke to Fëanor, saying, Now what ships and rowers will you spare to return? And whom shall they bear hither first? Fingon the valiant? Then Fëanor laughed as one fey, and he cried, None, and none. What I have left behind I count now no loss. Needless baggage on the road it has proved. Let those that cursed my name curse me still, and wind their way back to the cages of the Valar. Let the ships burn. Then Maedhros alone stood aside, but Fëanor caused fire to be set to the white ships of the Teleri. So in that place, which was called Losgar, at the outlet of the Firth of Drengist, ended the fairest vessels that ever sailed the sea, in a great burning, bright and terrible. And Fingolfin and his people saw the light afar off, red beneath the clouds, and they knew that they were betrayed. This was the first fruits of the kinslaying and the doom of the Noldor. Then Fingolfin, seeing that Fëanor had left him to perish in Araman, or return in shame to Valinor, was filled with bitterness. But he desired now as ever before to come by some way to Middle-earth and meet Fëanor again. And he and his host wandered long in misery, but their valor and endurance grew with hardship, for they were a mighty people, the elder children undying of Eru Iluvatar, but new come from the blessed realm, and not yet weary with the weariness of earth. The fire of their hearts was young, and led by Fingolfin and his sons, and by Finrod and Galadriel, they dared to pass into the bitterest north. And finding no other way, they endured, at last, the terror of the Helcaraxë and the cruel hills of ice. Few of the deeds of the Noldor thereafter surpassed that desperate crossing in hardihood or woe. There Elenwe, the wife of Turgon, was lost, and many others perished also. And it was with a lessened host that Fingolfin set foot at last upon the outer lands. Small love for Fëanor or his sons had those that marched at last behind him, and blew their trumpets in Middle-earth at the first rising of the moon. So in summary, as the Noldor approach Helcaraxë, the grinding ice in the north, Fëanor weighs his options for getting the hosts across the sea. He decides to take his closest kin on the ships and leave behind Fingolfin's host. Once they reach Middle-earth, Fëanor burns the ships, abandoning the rest of the Noldor to perish in the unforgiving north. Fingolfin and his host endured and succeeded in passing through the ice to Middle-earth. If you like what you hear, go ahead and rate us 3 Silmarils out of 3.
See you next week.
He's like, I'm done.
I love this, how immediate Mondos's doom and like curse, the curse like kind of afflicts them. They're just leaving Tuna, like they just leave their home and already they've killed their kin, the Teleri, and now they've made it to this place. They're close to their goal of reaching Middle-earth, and then it's just like they're just embroiled in this conflict already between themselves. I like how it says it here too, this line. It reminds me of those stupid games that I'm really terrible at, like the ones where you have to negotiate, like the they're not really board games, they're like party games. Like
oh yeah.
Like Mafia or something?
Or Resistance or something.
Right,
like that.
yeah, Resistance, yeah. That I'm like absolutely terrible at these, and like what you're reading, the treachery that they talk about kind of reminds me of those types of games where when you know that you can't trust the people around you, you have to do kind of despicable things, And I'm reading from 89 here, but it says of Fëanor and his closest people, already the fear of treachery was awake among the Noldor. Therefore it came into the hearts of Fëanor and his sons to seize all the ships and depart suddenly. And so it's kind of like the fear of maybe something bad happening to them, cause like they kind of strike first. Like we're gonna preemptively, we just assume that someone's gonna do something bad to us, so we'll just get the upper hand.
It could
But
also be just an awareness of the scarcity that, okay, we don't think we can make it through the grinding ice, and there's not enough ships for everyone. So we have to take matters into our own hands.
You mean that in the sense of his motivation might not be as bad as I'm making it sound?
No, I think it's equally bad.
No.
To take the ships. It's like those people in Titanic it's like that villain in Titanic who takes his child, says, I have a child coming through. I have a child. Even though he stole the child from someone, he's just concerned about
cowardly. Yeah,
he's a coward.
It's come from like self-preservation, really, like above all. Like if some people are bound to die in the ice here, it's not going to be me. I'm going to go with these ships. The slippery slope, Fëanor.
I love how the Helcaraxë is described. Let me find it. It's the grinding ice.
The terror of the Helcaraxë and the cruel hills of ice.
Yeah, it reminds me of the that world on Interstellar with Matt Damon.
Oh, the Frozen one. Oh, I think I found where you're talking about, where it says, east shores of Endor, which there was a narrow strait through which the chill waters of the encircling sea and the waves of Belagar flowed together, and there were vast fogs and mists of deathly cold, and the sea streams were filled with clashing hills of ice and the grinding of ice deep sunken. Yeah, it's just this totally unhospitable place.
And only the Valar have dared to tread there, and Ungoliant.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. Can you imagine Ungoliant just skittering across that land?
Famished, like always.
Yes. Yeah.
Ready to just devour you if he sees you.
Terrifying.
I had to look up a word when we were reading that I did not know. Do you know what this word means, Dan? Being British? Fey, F-E-Y? Fey?
F-E-Y. No, maybe contextually.
Okay. It says, then Fëanor laughed as one Fey.
Oh, no, I don't.
So I looked it up because I didn't know what that word meant. It's I guess it's kind of archaic, but it is kind of like a more British word, I guess, meaning doomed or fated to die. So that really helped capture this. Then Fëanor laughed as one Fey. This is after Maedhros says, so who's going back to get the rest of them? And Fëanor just starts laughing maniacally,
Like he's lost hope of redemption, and he just knows that his end is doom and hopefully vengeance.
Yeah.
Like his only hope is just vengeance. He thinks he cannot be redeemed.
Have any of you seen someone laugh this way? I think I have, but not fated to die or
how would you do it?
Well, I was on a vacation when I was 10. I was on a vacation with my family. We drove from our home in LA to Edmonton, Canada, and a lot of time in the car, both ways. And there was one night, I guess we didn't have prepared lodging. We stopped at a bunch of motels, and a lot of them, even though they were non-smoking rooms, smelled really smoky. I think this is probably in Reno, Nevada or something, if I had to guess. Anyway, it was getting later and later. And I think my dad was just becoming more and more desperate, not sure that we were going to find somewhere to stay that night. And just after a long day of driving, and at some point he just started laughing. And my sister and I in the backseat were just like, nope.
Come to think of it, I probably have laughed like that. Just, damn, when your child broke the glass right before going live, did you laugh in a Fey way?
No, but everything felt like it was going to Fey.
I mean, there are moments where things just I don't know. I feel like I've had that where things are just so absurdly I mean, maybe they're not that bad in terms of degree, but it just seems like everything is going wrong, and you just, I don't know. I've had that where I just like
You
have
guys
the
ever
urge
done
to
that where you
laugh.
lift up your trash bag to throw it away and all the trash falls out of the bottom? Yeah, I've done one of those.
And all you can do is laugh.
Yeah.
Well, there's that meme of that kid who's been interviewed by a news anchor about his first day at school. Oh, you miss your mummy? And he's like, it just starts crying. Like, starts off with a laugh and then realizes it's Faye.
So can we recap just a sequence of events? So Fëanor, going back to Amon, Fëanor leaves to pursue Morgoth, who stole the Silmarils, against the Council of the Valar.
Mm-hmm.
Then they betray was it the Teleri?
Right.
Okay, they betray the Teleri, try to steal their ships. And do they succeed in stealing some of their ships?
They do. They kill some of the Teleri in order to.
So then now they're just desperately trying to get to Middle Earth. With doom behind them. Mandos has spoken doom upon them. They've killed some of their own kindred. And now there's an even worse betrayal. It's like even the ones who went with you, like you killed the Teleri, but now you're killing those even closer to you, or you're submitting them to death by leaving them behind, burning the ships. Like it just gets worse and worse from Fëanor's perspective.
Yeah. I like the end of this. This is the end of the chapter that we read, and the last bit of it where Fingolfin and his people finally make it to Middle Earth, and you can just imagine, like, they've been left for dead, so you can only imagine how much they just hate Fëanor, and it says Fëanor and his sons, small love for Fëanor and his sons had those that marched at last behind him, meaning Fingolfin and his people, and blew their trumpets in Middle Earth at the first rising of the moon. So we had also heard recently about the creation of the sun and the moon, and there's these two Maiar that pull the moon and the sun in chariots or something like that. They kind of like fly the sun across the sky and back, and the moon rises first, we heard earlier. And so it's kind of these two different stories are meeting at this point where Fingolfin and his host finally arrive at Middle Earth right as the moon rises for the first time.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's probably art of that somewhere. I want to look that up. Someone's probably drawn that.
Nice catch. Where is that? Page 90?
The very last sentence of the chapter we read.
Wow. Nice.
So you can just imagine these people that in desperation just spent however long crossing the grinding ice, and they're just totally beaten down and worn out. And they finally arrive, and the moon just is rising behind them.
It's not, you don't see the moon, but there's the Noldor.
Are you reading the Silmarillion from that?
I am.
Oh,
and I'm using
so cool.
it to highlight the things I want to put in Discord, which we should talk about Discord. We should tell people that we'll be putting artwork on Discord, and you guys, as you're listening, if you're this way inclined and you have Midjourney or any kind of AI art, or you're an artist, go ahead and drop it in our Discord, and we would love to feature it on future episodes. Just put the art, tell us which chapter it's from, and or who the characters are, and we'll see if we can get it up.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah. Any last thoughts?
I think people who are inclined to discuss these episodes with others should also check out the Discord. We haven't really promoted it or anything. We just started it, but there's going to be threads for discussion for each episode, but then you can also just discuss whatever you want.
It's pretty much exclusive, like, the Fellowship and the Council of Elrond, just really exclusive. Yeah. So you're invited, listener, yes, you, join our exclusive Discord channel. It's the best Tolkien verse there is. Join the conversation on Twitter and our Discord channel. You can find the link in the description. And rate us 3 Silmarils out of 3.
Yeah, there you go.
And send any comments or questions to beforethefellowship@gmail.com, and join us next week as we read the greatest story you've never heard, The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Came at last, far into the north of Arda.
That was no different. Those 2 times were exactly the same, just so you know. All right, go.
The Noldor came at last, far into the north of Arda. All right, shut up. The I'm gonna minimize your faces.